All right, today we're going to look at area. Some of you may remember how we did area. If you remember right, we had rows over here. Rows go this way. I'll go ahead and put them across. Rows go like this. Okay, so we had rows right here, and then columns go up and down. So we had columns here. So we had rows times columns. You could also say that it is length times width. Now, when we get to this is kind of a special case. I probably should do it last. Let's look at this one right here. Here we have a base, and at some point, we need to find where the highest point is. This is the tallest point, okay? So that is called its height, all right? So how tall is that height? And what we have is we're basically going to do the same thing. And I'm going to show you how that works. But we're going to have it, instead of length times width, we are going to call this base times height. But it's not just base times height, because that'd be like length times width. It's really going to be 1/2 times base times height. So if I had a square, I'm going to come up here, or a rectangle, doesn't really matter. Here's a rectangle. And if I have, let's call this here the base, and let's call this the height, okay? And what if I split this? See, if I just had base times height, it would be the whole thing. So I need half of it. And that's why we have 1/2 base times height. See how that made two different triangles? Well, we're only looking at one of those parts right here, that triangle. Even though I have that split, we're not splitting the triangle. This is already a triangle, okay? There's many ways that we can do this base times height. We can do it, we can write it this way. We can write it base that times height, or we can do base times height divided by 2. And that really helps us later on. We're going to be using those. Now, this is where this gets really kind of crazy, because this is base 2, this is base 1. Okay, so it's really the same thing as a triangle. If you could picture this triangle, this point right here and this point right here touching, it would just be a triangle. And somebody took and they stretched it out. So let's do the same thing. We're going to write 1/2. That's where our base would be, times height. But here we don't know the base because we have two of them. So we're going to go B1 plus B2. And that's what's going to give us the base. Okay, so whatever that equals up to, then we have our base. And it's just like a triangle at that point. So do y'all understand the basic formulas of area? And that's really what we're looking at. So let's go to the next page. And let's do some examples. I want to take just a simple rectangle. And what if I said that this was 2 and this was 8? Well, we know that RC, or we know LW, length times width, we're going to be taking 2 times 8. And what does that equal? 16. Let's say that these are inches. Okay, that's our units, inches. Well, we would need to do inches here, but that's squared because we multiplied. Okay. Perimeter, this would be a 2 over here, and that would be an 8. It'd be 8 and 8, 16. 2 and 2 is 4. 4 plus 16 would be 20. So our perimeter, I don't know why I did that. Our perimeter equals side plus side plus side plus side, dot, 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 however many sides there are. And in this case, when we added them all up, we got 20 inches. It's not squared because we didn't multiply, okay? Now let's do the same thing with a triangle. Let's say here that this triangle is 2, and this part right here, we're going to call it 8. It's not really drawn to scale, but I want you to see how it's done. I can't do 2 times 8 because I would get 16. So we need to remember what our formula was. And our formula says area is equal to 1/2 base height. Okay. So when I put in the numbers, the base is a 2 and the height is an 8. What if I divided that by 2? Couldn't I just mark that out and it equals 8? Let's call these inches. Inches squared. Pretty cool. So let's do the same thing over here now. I want to see how this one here is going to work. We're going to have to use some different numbers though. We're going to say that this in here is 8. Let's say that this in here is 6. And let's say that the height at the highest point, we're going to call it 3. Okay? So let's build our equation. We know that it's going to be 1/2 whatever the base is times the height. What is the height? 3. What's our base? Well, it's going to be 8 plus 6. What is 8 plus 6? 14. And then we have 1/2 times that. Now, I like to make my numbers small. So let's go ahead and get this here. What is 14 divided by 2? 7. Let's drop this down. Now it's 7 times 3, 21. Let's call these inches. 21 inches squared. Pretty simple stuff. I'd like for you to practice some of these. You can look back at the video and see how I worked them out. Hopefully this will help. Be good. Remember, I'm the meanest teacher in all the land.